Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Father Justin Daffron, and on behalf of Father Michael Garanzini, our president, welcome to Loyola University Chicago. It's our pleasure, especially this day, to welcome those students from the Army, Navy, Marines, and Air Force ROTC programs, as well as our veterans here today. Let us give a round of applause to all those students. Collectively, our ROTC students reflect a true cross-section of our university, undergraduates as well as graduate students from every school and discipline. Their fields of study range from business to law to higher education, and truly they are some of our best students here at Loyola. Loyola has a long tradition of hosting an Army ROTC program, Marine and Air Force ROTC programs are at partnering universities. In conjunction with these programs, we administrators, staff, and faculty have the privilege of educating women and men for others and of providing them the best of what a Jesuit education has to offer, helping them to learn to think critically, lead ethically, and serve others willingly. As Father Garanzini noted in his remarks on transformative education, and I quote, "We are set on preparing people to lead extraordinary lives, providing growth at every corner, from ignorance to understanding, from isolation to dialogue, from indifference to moral responsibility. This renewing sense of purpose, fed by knowledge in the service of humanity, helps guide our every action," I end quote. To all our students, we extend our deepest hope that your Loyola education and its Ignatian values continually guide your actions throughout your careers, as we believe they did for our special guest today, Captain William Swenson. Before I introduce this afternoon's distinguished guest, I'd like to introduce you to some other individuals. Lieutenant Colonel Christopher Clay with the 3rd Brigade is a professor of military science in the Army ROTC program here at Loyola and was commissioned through ROTC from Tulane University. He's held leadership positions at various bases in the U.S. and Germany and was deployed to Kosovo in support of Operation Joint Guardian, to Iraq for Operation Iraqi Freedom, and to Afghanistan for Operation Enduring Freedom. Colonel Clay was instrumental in bringing Will Swenson to campus today and will join me in facilitating this afternoon's question and answer with Captain Swenson. We're grateful for his efforts on behalf of his students, the university, and his country. I'd like to also introduce two other guests from the U.S. Army, Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Skoraka, Director in the Office of the Chief of Public Affairs for the Midwest Headquarters, Department of the Army, and his deputy, Ms. Brandy Schiff. Our sincere thanks to both of you, and our Dean of the Law School, David Yellen, who is hosting us this day. The nation's newest Medal of Honor recipient, former Captain William Swenson, received this honor, this nation's highest medal, for valor in combat, for saving more than a dozen lives after his squad was ambushed in Afghanistan in 2009, and is the second person to receive the Medal of Honor for that battle. The official citation for this honor reads, I quote, "With complete disregard for his own safety, Captain Swenson unhesitantly led a team in an armored vehicle into the kill zone, exposing himself to enemy fire on at least 2 occasions to recover the wounded and search for missing comrades. His extraordinary heroism and selflessness above and beyond the call of duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service," end quote. And I can say for myself, from the videos that I saw on YouTube from the war zone, the touching moment when Bill Swenson leaned over his fellow comrade and kissed him on the forehead shows that even in the darkest moments of life, we can be truly human towards each other. Will Swenson graduated from Seattle University, another Jesuit school, earning a Bachelor's of Science degree in political science, and joined the military in 2002. His military education includes the Infantry Mountain Leader Advanced Course, U.S. Army Airborne School, U.S. Army Ranger School, and the Infantry Maneuver Captain's Career Course. He received numerous awards and decorations in his military career, including the Purple Heart, the Bronze Star, and the Army Commendation Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, the Army Service Ribbon, the Overseas Service Ribbon, and the NATO Medal. It is our great honor and privilege to welcome William D. Swenson to Loyola University, Chicago. The format for our program will be a facilitated question and answer period by Lieutenant Clay and myself, followed by open questions from our audience. So it's my privilege to ask Lieutenant Clay to offer our first question.
Thanks again for coming. We really appreciate you coming here, especially for all the cadets that are here. As he said, we do have Navy and Air Force guys here too, with all of their leadership training and everything that they've had. My first question is mainly, as the ROTC battalion commander here, and going off of the Army values of leadership, can you tell us, and for those of you who don't know what the Army values are, I wrote them down here: the loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. That how would you, how was that for you during your military service, and how do you realize that for your leadership in your personal views and in the world view?
Well, first off, thank you for having me. I don't think my LSAT scores would have ever brought me to this room, so we'll just get that out of the way. Army values. You know, you guys are about to embark on an interesting career and an extraordinary amount of responsibility. Being an officer in the United States Army is actually, or in the military in general, is probably the most profound thing that you can do with your life. I apologize to law school students. Right out of the chute, you guys are going to be in charge of soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and your decisions will affect their lives. And these are real people, and those are your decisions. And you need to make sure that when you leave this institution, that you're capable of making those decisions. And of course, the Army comes up with all these fun acronyms like leadership, loyalty, duty, responsibility, or all that other stuff. Actually, I need that list. You know, the funny thing is, though, it's real. It's real, and your soldiers will see it. If you have loyalty to your soldiers, they'll see that, and they'll be there for you. They'll be loyal to you. Duty, well, that's what you're doing. I mean, these are the core values of the military, but these are the things that you are going to have to show your soldiers that you are capable of performing in your day-to-day activities, in your roles as leaders, and they're going to see that, and they'll respond in kind. If you're there for your soldiers, they're going to be there for you.
Thank you. I guess that, do you see any other values? Did you bring any of your own values into the service, and how do you see that as you move forward now that you've won the Medal of Honor, with anything to that effect?
Warfighting isn't rocket science. It's pretty straightforward. We've been doing it pretty well now for the past 10,000 or so years. When you're on a battlefield, you know what the right thing is to do. You're American soldiers, you're American service members, you know what the right thing is to do. So you can put a name on it, you can try to define it, you can try to make an acronym. Ultimately, you will know what the right thing is to do.
Will, you graduated from one of our sister Jesuit schools, and I'm wondering if you could share some remarks how your education at Seattle University helped prepare you for a career in military service.
Jesuit education is a unique one. It's you get a full spectrum of knowledge. You know, I was dragged kicking and screaming into those philosophy classes, but I'm very glad that I went there. It's a unique experience, and of course, this is an educational system that's based on the foundation of St. Ignatius de Loyola, and he's a former soldier. And you can see those values instilled still in the educational system that you are experiencing here today. What you receive at a Jesuit institution is it's a unique experience. I don't think you'd find it in any other institution. Be proud of what you've done, be proud of where you are, and take what you learn and move on with it. You'll be set.
And I think that both of your parents are educators.
Yes, it's a curse when you have to figure out what part of speech is wrong, and if those death eyes mean you didn't use whom appropriately.
Thank you.
Everybody knows, most everybody in this room has already read the story of your Medal of Honor, so I don't necessarily want to talk about that. But really, it's your courage. What type of mentors did you have growing up, and how did they affect your life?
I'll fast forward to the part of my life that most relates to the military. I had a strong foundation, of course, as a child. I had some great role models. Even though you guys skipped class today, I understand sports are a great place to actually learn a lot of these values that you carry on later in life. But for me in the military, what it really came down to was listening to NCOs. They're the soldiers that you lead. These are the subject matter experts in the job that you are about to go into. You don't know a damn thing. They do. You're the one who makes the decisions, so you need to listen to them. So when I was coming up through the military, I actually took a shortcut because I did the OCS college option. What you're doing in 4 years took me 6 months. I hope you're not disappointed by that, but I listened to the NCOs, and these are your soldiers. They will tell you what you need to know. And if there was anyone who guided my path, it was those NCOs who picked me up, dusted me off every time I screwed something up, told me what right looked like, made fun of me a little while, and then I drove on. So listen to your NCOs.
For those of us that don't have military backgrounds, could you explain a little bit about what an NCO is and what role they have in helping to serve in the military?
NCO, it's the non-commissioned officer. It's the backbone of the Army. It's the backbone of all of our military. They're the enlisted members who have risen up to the ranks to be given additional responsibility of a non-commissioned officer. Generally speaking, a commissioned officer in the United States military is college educated and goes through a commissioning source, such as this institution or West Point or Air Force Academy. Whereas non-commissioned officers, they can start as a 17-year-old private and work their way up through the system, and through their career, through their capabilities, they will prove themselves to be leaders. And they'll be recognized and they'll be given the title of non-commissioned officer. And they are the backbone of our institution. Officers, basically, they make decisions, but NCOs are the ones who do it. They're the ones who actually make the military move.
Thank you. Making the military move, I imagine, takes more than just any one person because of the team aspect of working together. I'm wondering, especially since we have some athletes here today that are part of teams and our students that are part of the ROTC battalions, if you could speak to some of those qualities of teamwork and collaboration that you think are important for all of us as we work together for our common goals, whatever they might be.
You'll always be able to recognize a team. They're the people who are standing to your left and to your right. And that is your team. In the military, that's your squad, that's your company. But team doesn't necessarily mean who you can see. It doesn't even mean necessarily who you've met. As in the military, your team may be 30,000 feet above you. You've never met them, but they're there for you. They're part of your team. They may work with you that 1 hour and they're gone and you never run into them again, but they're your team. That artilleryman, that's your team. That doctor in launch stool, that's your team. And I'm here today because of an award that is bestowed upon an individual, and that happened to be me. But no action that I did in the absence of a team. Every step I took, I had somebody there supporting me. And you build the team at that level, playing basketball or going out and doing your squad FTXs. But you have to remember, the team is much bigger than yourself, and you may not even recognize it. But never lose the importance of that team.
You've hit on almost a lot of the things that I really wanted to hit on, and I have all my cadets here, or not all of them, but a lot of them are here. Some of them are actually out at an FTX currently, and they're going to follow on after that. What guidance, I mean, you've given a lot of guidance on that, but what would you tell these cadets as they start to go out? Relying on NCOs is key. And then what leadership qualities did you see were most important that your soldiers listen to you the best? You've had the leaders that have screamed and yelled. Those aren't usually the ones that are going to get the best action. Can you describe some of those qualities that you saw in some of the better leaders that you've worked with?
As a leader, you should never have to tell anyone what to do. You shouldn't have to tell them that they need to go take that objective, or tell them they need to get that Humvee dispatched, or tell them to clean up their barracks rooms. A leader always has people want to follow them. And some people this comes more naturally than to others, but that is your goal as a leader. You never want to have to tell people what to do. They should look to you, they should see natural leadership, and they should follow. And part of establishing that is establishing trust. You always need to establish trust with your soldiers, always need to establish trust with your subordinates, no matter what walk of life you're in. And that trust comes from respect, mutual respect, and competency. They need to believe in you. They need to believe in your capabilities, and they need to believe that you will always be there for them and do the right thing by them. Once you have that established, leadership is easy.
Obviously, we learn too from specific people that inspire us as leaders, and we've all had the experience of encountering some of these leaders that you have articulate some of those important qualities. I'm wondering if you could just share some examples from your own life, Will, of those leaders who have inspired you, who they were, what period of your life that was, and what were the qualities about them that kind of stuck with you in your own leadership style.
Address the matter of the screaming leader. I think the first time that I truly saw leadership was when I was a young, dumb second lieutenant. Didn't know what on earth I was doing. I did have some NCOs to kindly prod me in the right direction. And I had an extraordinarily patient company commander who was there to help me grow and learn what it was to be a leader. And it just comes back down to establishing that trust and that respect and being that person you know who's there for you. But they'll correct you when necessary. They'll do it publicly. But you know they're there for you, and you know that it's out of mutual respect. You'll know when you see it.
Thank you. At this time, we'd like to open up for questions from our audience. So if those students that are going to be helping with the microphones wouldn't mind taking your places, we'd invite open questions from the audience. So if you would just raise your hand if you have a question, and a gentleman will come to you with the microphone. Thank you.
Hi, and thank you very much. Did you expect to win the Medal of Honor ever?
You know, this is, for lack of better words, surreal. I think I skipped most of my promotion ceremonies. I think that I hid out from every award ceremony that I was ever supposed to be a part of. I think in my entire career I put my dress blues on 4 times, and twice were in the last week. Thank goodness for NCOs to help me put the shiny little medals on the right way. No, and I don't think that anyone ever comes into the military wanting to earn medals and earn awards. Obviously, you want to do your job, you want to do it well. Combat is a unique thing, but unfortunately what this medal represents is loss and tragedy. This is not about winning the battle, or this is not about accomplishing some great goal. This is about a bad day gone horribly wrong with severe, significant consequences. And we as a nation have determined that this is how we recognize service. I see this as a team effort, but I was identified, primus inter pares, first among equals. It's a responsibility, it's a burden, and I never came into the military thinking that anything like this would ever happen to me, no.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, sometimes hindsight is 20/20, and those of us who've already earned our college degrees even now have the experience of saying, you know, I really wished I had done something when I was in college, or you know, there was an opportunity that I had when I was in college to do something, participate in something, study something, and I either missed it or didn't take advantage of it. Can you think of any opportunities in hindsight, any experiences that you maybe now wished you had taken advantage of so that you could share those with our students who are here today?
Be here a long time if we go over all the things that I wish I could change. But I think
In or out of the classroom, I mean, that's...
probably just a singular focus. When you leave here, unless you plan on spending a few more years in academia and then maybe staying forever in academia, you really do have to start making decisions as to what you want to do, what you want to achieve, what you want to impact. And this is your opportunity to do it. You move on from this location and really the clock is ticking. You have a finite opportunity in life to make a difference. You have a finite opportunity in life to do what you want to do. And this is your opportunity to start getting that foundation in order, because once you leave, it's a big, scary world out there. And some of you might have some college debt chasing you down, so yeah, it's even scarier.
Sir, I was just wondering, what made you decide to go into the infantry when you came to the time to decide your branch?
You know, originally I thought military intelligence would be a better idea. And then I had some good NCOs pull me aside and say, you have no idea. That's not what you want to do. This is where you need to be. I didn't know what it was, so I just went skipping along. All right, I'll be an infantryman. You know, 2 years later, I figured out what that meant. There were a lot of chigger bites later, a lot of tick bites later, a lot of sitting in swamps, a lot of misery, a lot of pain. But I'll tell you what, I wouldn't have it any other way.
I have a two-part question. First of all, on behalf of our men's basketball team and everyone here, we just want to thank you for your service and bravery to our country, for sure. So it's an honor to be here. My two-part question is this. In the coaching profession in athletes, we always reference the military regarding discipline and precision. So if there's anything you can touch on, stories, or what discipline and precision mean, of how that affects the military. And the second part of the question is about the word accountability, and about accountability amongst soldiers without their leader, that they hold each other accountable, and how accountability plays in the military.
I'd say first off, you can always be faster, you can always jump higher, you can always shoot more accurately, so it's training. You should always be training. If you think you're good enough, you're not. You can always train more, you can always do more, you can always be more. That's one thing I learned in the Army. You're never done training. You've never figured it out. You've never gotten to get to the point where you can just sit back on your laurels and say, I'm good enough. Just keep training. Second part of your question, accountability. Institutions, vertical. Leadership is at the top. Little people are at the bottom. Leadership can hold you accountable. But it's really that horizontal network that you have with your peers. They're the ones who are truly going to keep you accountable. They're the ones who are going to truly keep you honest. They're the ones that are sitting there watching what you do. And they're the ones that, when you let somebody down, it's probably them. And they're going to be right next to you to remind you of that. Leadership will get it eventually. But accountability. You're always accountable to your guy to your left and to your right.
Cadet Williamson.
Sir, what made you want to join the military if it wasn't initially your plan for after college, specifically the Army over any other branch, and in general?
Well, I originally saw myself more in a foreign service occupation, and I spent a little bit of time in the Balkans, brushing up on my language skills. And when I looked around the Balkans at that time, we had K4, S4 had just been in there, and I saw a lot of different actors on the ground. I saw, some U.S. State Department, I saw a lot of UN, and I saw an awful lot of Army. And I didn't really think much of it at the time, but when the decision was made what I want to do when I grow up, I realized that institutions like the Foreign Service, you're going to stamp passports for 10 years. And maybe after 10 years, they'll give you an assistant, and you're going to be managing one other person. And then maybe in 20 years, you get a small staff. Maybe in 30, you get that embassy position. And looking back to my time in the Balkans, I saw some young second lieutenant running around with 40 people, $1 million worth of equipment, fresh out of college. And I thought, you know what? I can do that for 3 years. I don't want to stamp passports. I don't want to sit behind a desk. I want to do something that really tests me. It tests my mettle. So as I said, it's an institution like nowhere else. You leave this room, you leave this institution, you get that commission, it's go time. It's real. So I think that's really what drew me to it. It was a challenge, and there's really nowhere else you can be challenged in the same way.
I was just wondering if you could give a brief anecdote about your funniest or most entertaining moment in your military experience.
I'll tailor this for the audience.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Second Lieutenant Swenson, coming off an air assault mission, middle of the night. Get back from an operation, running around chasing bad guys. It's exciting. It's cowboys and Indians. I think that this is awesome. My guys are just meat eaters. Just meat eaters. I'm stoked. I'm feeling pretty cool. And then I hear this little bark. What was that? I look over at one of my squad leaders, and there's a little puppy popping out of his body armor that he's trying to hide from me that he brought back from our mission. Some dog picked up in the middle of nowhere. And this man was probably like 250 pounds of raw muscle. This man looked like a meat eater. Little puppy.
What did y'all do with the puppy?
Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
There was another one I have here.
When you were in the Army and you were experiencing diversity and hardships, what was it that kept you motivated to keep moving forward and kept you focused?
Well, I think it comes back to that team. What looks to us from, 10,000 kilometers away as austere and difficult and hot and sweaty and dusty, when you're there with other people, when you're there with your team, you kind of don't see that. Because you see your guys to your left and to your right doing the exact same thing you're doing. You're not special. You're not important. You're no different. And I guess you put it in context. So even on your worst days, whether it's in training and somebody's decided to be a great idea to keep you up for 3 days in a row and then march you around in circles, or you're in war, you have a context, and it's your teammates. And that really just kind of changes the dynamic of what you recognize as true hardship. Unless, of course, you see an Air Force base, in which case you know what hardship is, because they have golf courses and stuff like that. So,
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Meredith, and I'm a graduate student in the social work school here. And I was curious, especially when you talked about team, is there any member of your team, so to speak, that is in more of a civilian capacity that you've experienced since you've gotten back that's been especially helpful or pertinent? And can you speak to those roles that those of us that aren't going to do this could help with?
Well, you know, it's a huge institution out there, and there's a lot of people that are out there who've been polling for me for a few years now. I'll just say that, yes, there's always that civilian side and support. I'm not sure how to better address that for you.
Like, what do they do? Who and where? Would it just be folks at the VA? Would it be?
Get back to you about the VA. That's taking a little longer than expected.
Okay.
No, when you're in the service, you know, you see the green suiters, you see the military people, but the civilians are really there for you. The DOD civilians, they are there for you, and they pull for you. I can't give you an exact example right now. There's just too many.
Good to know.
Thank you again, sir. This is an honor. But more for the officer candidates here, what was the greatest challenge you had as a fresh platoon leader, and how did you overcome that challenge?
Well, I think that one thing I had to do, and one of my greatest challenges, was moderating expectations and trying to stay humble. You go through all your training, you go into the infantry, you finish all your HUA schools, you're all full of piss and vinegar, you think that you're the greatest thing on earth, and you show up to a platoon full of guys, and they don't care. They just do not care. And I think that that was one of the greatest challenges for me, because here I was, I thought, you know, I've done all these things, oh, look at me, I'm awesome. Now, it didn't take long, and my expectations started getting moderated, and I was put in check. Actually, I think I was duct taped to my Humvee, but you know, I think that that was a difficult transition for me.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why did you go back into the valley 3 times in Afghanistan?
Well, addressing your point, you're there with the team, left and right. What seems like a bad idea now, it was the right thing to do then. You have fellow service members, they need your help, and that's your responsibility. You have to weigh the decision against potential outcomes. You have to weigh the decision against what the consequences could be, and you make a decision. In that case, we made the decision to continue re-entering that valley because it was what was called on at that moment. That was what we were called to do. It really did not take a lot of decision-making to make that happen.
Captain Swenson, thank you for being here. I'm a former sergeant in the Marines, and I served with 2-7 out of 29 Palms. But anyways, my question is, what does the future hold for you? Like, are you going to do kind of the Miss America, go around the country, and if you do, like, is there like a cause that you're going to try and bring up with your fame, for lack of a better word, your fame? Thank you.
Well, I'll be honest, I only planned up to about 2 weeks ago. After that, I really don't have a plan, so I'm kind of going with what's presented to me. Thank you. No, I'm really trying to reconcile what this means. It's, for me, the most important thing that I had to do was help bring closure to a team that I fought with on that battlefield and help bring closure to the families who lost loved ones there. And that was my primary objective. And I would like to believe that that's what was achieved. And now the responsibility is on me to represent this award and represent what it stands for. And obviously it comes with a powerful platform. I mean, I'm just a captain, former captain. I mean, that's really just not that big of a deal in the Army. And here I am speaking to you. Well, I wasn't even a particularly good one. But here I am. So what I do in the future with this has to represent and has to recognize what our service members do day in, day out, and what our veterans have given, and what our Gold Star families have sacrificed. And with that, I will ensure that I do deference to all of them, whatever I do in the future. Right now, mostly I just kind of want to go on vacation and disappear for a while. I don't know, but
Can you describe what a Gold Star family is for those people who don't?
so a Gold Star family is a family who lost a service member in war, and they're a compelling group of individuals. In fact, I got the opportunity to meet a lot of the families who lost loved ones on that battlefield that I fought on that day for the first time at the White House ceremony, and it was a powerful moment. But these are families who have lost loved ones, and they're just a great group of people. I mean, their willingness to continue basically their fallen loved one's service is why they're a Gold Star family. They don't withdraw, they don't wither, they stay out there, they stay focused, and they stay engaged. And they're a great group of people.
Well, I'll go ahead and ask a question real quick. You talked about the apathy in some of your soldiers, and everybody out here wants to be a leader. Everybody who's here, they're going to school, they want to get that job, they want to be in charge. You know, I've had my own struggles with different things. How did you, when you were that platoon leader, when you were that out there on the mid team, trying to get away from apathy, and what was your way of getting to motivate those soldiers or Afghanistan soldiers or whatever it may have been?
I think it comes back down to natural characteristics of leadership. You know what right looks like, and if you project yourself appropriately, if you recognize who your soldiers are, and if you show that trust and respect to them, motivating them shouldn't be difficult. It should just come naturally. For me, maybe I was lucky. Maybe I had a great team that always helped support me in my career, but apathy was never something we suffered from. If anything, I always had to pull back on the leash. You know, it was a great group of guys, and I could definitely see that there's times, especially in there's some future challenges coming up in the military. You know, sometime in the future, you know, the funding may not be there for all the whiz-bang training and all the great fun training events and things like that, and you're going to have to come up with more creative solutions to motivate your soldiers to be good soldiers. The tempo of war. I mean, there won't be the deploy 1 year, back 1 year, deploy 1 year, back 1 year. So it's going to be a different focus. It's going to be a different Army. But it's going to be up to you to ensure that it's still a capable Army. And I think a lot of that apathy you might see, and this is probably a concern, well, it's a concern that I've actually heard from the senior leadership of the military, the Sergeant Major of the Army and the Chief of Staff of the Army, is in the absence of wars, what are we as a military? What are we as an Army? What is our focus? What is our motivation? You're going to have a bunch of guys who've done a whole bunch of tours, and their focus is going to be fighting coin warfare. Their focus is going to be on the last war. And your focus is going to be maintain focus on the current war, but train for the future war. And a lot of that apathy is going to come down to, potentially, hey, maneuver warfare isn't exactly great stuff to train on. You know, coin is awesome. You get to run around and speak foreign languages and, you know, do small unit operations and things like that. Moving around as a battalion is a total drag. But you know what? That's what we do. That's what we need to do. That's what the focus is on the future. And then you're going to have difficulty motivating some of these people to refocus their efforts on what their job really is, which is not deploying year after year after year after year. It's training for America's future fight.
I was going to ask a quick question. It seems like you're surprised how quickly this all happened. Are you? Or is your family surprised that they gave you this medal? It seems like they called you up and get over here type of thing. And number two, you really had to kind of confront your superiors. And I kind of wanted to follow up on that because in business, we always have to face our superiors one way or the other. And how are you handling that after the fact?
Awards are a unique thing, and I wasn't exactly blindsided by this. In fact, I was told the day I was put in for it, which was the day after the battle, that I'd been put in for it. So, no, this has not exactly been a shock to me. I've had a lot of time to think about this and a lot of time to think about what it means. And I think, as I mentioned before, nobody ever wants this to happen to them. It's a burden, it's a responsibility, and it's an enormous honor. But, no, I was not blindsided by this. And your next point was?
How are you handling the aftermath with dealing with your superiors that you have
And as you said, this is something that you have to deal with in every institution, but especially the military, where the hierarchy is pretty firmly set. You know, you can look at somebody's chest, you can determine their rank, and you know your place. You know, and this is specifically for you guys. They say that in an AAR, an after-action review, something you guys do at the end of every single operation, whether it's tying your shoes or doing a full-up FTX or an operation, they say no thin skins, all right? And it's your responsibility as leaders to ensure that in these AARs you hold no punches. If something was wrong, you have to identify it. You have to do it constructively, your criticism has to be accurate, and you have to make sure you have at least a solution for it, because nobody likes a complainer. But there's definitely a difference between a contentious relationship with your superiors and a professional one. And always remember, it is your responsibility to your soldiers to identify mistakes, identify who made them, and ensure they're not made again. I think that we did see the Secretary of the Army and the Secretary of Defense indicate that changes are being made. And it took some time, but as an institution, the Army always self-corrects.
As a Medal of Honor recipient, being a former veteran, how do you expect to implement more change now as a veteran? There's a lot of veterans out there that are struggling. Some of us are very lucky to have the team on the school credit. But as a Medal of Honor recipient, how do you kind of plan on implementing that change and helping them continue to motivate for their programs?
Somewhat addressing your point, the medal gives you the opportunity to speak to audiences like you, speak to many diverse audiences. Earlier today, I was speaking with the Union League. I'll be speaking with the USO. You have a platform. You have an opportunity that few other soldiers get. And again, I'm just a captain, but it allows me to speak from what I know. From my little foxhole, I get to say what I have identified as things that need to be changed, problems that need to be identified and worked on. And I'm in contact with most of my former soldiers. It's a very tight family. All because you leave the military, it does not mean you've left the military. I get phone calls from my guys constantly. We're still a team. And I hear some of their challenges. A lot of them are veterans right now, and they're out of the military, and some of them have been very successful, others have not been. And it's an issue that I think a lot of different organizations are working on, and I think it's one of those issues that there's no singular answer for it. And that's why there's so many different organizations that are trying to approach the problem of how to help. I have not yet determined what my role in that is. I obviously will have to have a role. It's my responsibility, and I actually look forward to doing it. But speaking with my former soldiers, you know, you really do get to know the problems that affect them. I'm lucky. My transition out of the military, though interesting, I'm in a much different footing than a lot of my younger soldiers. And, you know, I have to remember them. So, in the future, I'll be fighting for them.
Sir, again, it's an honor for you to be speaking here. You stressed definitely throughout the whole presentation the importance of your team and team cohesion. When things get tough out in the field, when things aren't exactly going your way that day, what are some of the things that either how you motivate your soldiers to keep moving, to keep improving, or some of the ways that you can self-motivate yourself as well, vice versa with the team?
Your training is critical. And I think my darkest days in the military, aside from the loss of soldiers, has been training. You find yourself feeling sorry for yourself in the woods, in the swamps. You're tired, you're exhausted, you've got sand everywhere, and it's just an unpleasant thing. But you're there with your buddies, And sometimes you just have to help out a little bit more. You have to pick up that guy's ruck. It's not your job, it's not your responsibility. Quite frankly, he might even be your competition. But you pick up his ruck, carry his weight, you help him out, and then down the road, it's not his job, it's not his responsibility. He'll pick up your ruck when you need it.
Will, do you think that courage is something that people are born with innately, or is that something that can be cultivated? And if it is something that you think it could be cultivated, could you speak to how the military or your own family helped to develop that sense of courage that obviously you were able to display that some people couldn't in similar situation?
Courage, I think, is one of those things where, for some people, courage is actually recklessness. If you're not scared, there's something wrong with you. And I think that courage is oftentimes misunderstood as obligation. You don't want to go into a hail of bullets, or you don't want to have to do the right thing that's unpopular. You don't want to do some action that costs you something, physical, emotional, personal, but you have an obligation to do it because you know it's the moral thing to do. You know it's the just thing to do. And courage looks different for everybody, but it's the obligation that puts you there that I think separates that recklessness or some other reason for being there. It's that obligation.
Good afternoon, sir. In the Marine Corps, and I'm sure the Army as well, we emphasize mental toughness and the importance of that, specifically with our platoon leaders and platoon commanders. Is there anything that stands out for you or anything personally that you think you did, either leading up to Afghanistan in general or specifically for the battle that maybe you did to try and prepare yourself mentally for what you had to experience?
You know, the military is a unique profession of arms. People always say that I just want to bring my guys home. That's my primary objective, is I want to bring my guys home. And you have to steel yourself because that's not your primary objective. That's not your mission. It's the mission. Now, you want to make sure that it doesn't come at too great of a consequence. But that's the kind of thing that I think you're talking about, where you have to steel yourself, you have to become mentally strong. And as a leader, you have to make decisions that won't be popular, won't necessarily mean everyone comes home alive, won't make everyone happy. But you have to steel yourself for those decisions, because you cannot make decisions based on weakness. You cannot make decisions based on comfort. You have to make the right decision based on your training, based on doctrine, and that's really steeling yourself, I believe, mentally. And of course, the Marines are fantastic at that. The frontal assault seems to be one of your primary methods of attack. And you need mental stiffness to do that. And I've seen that before, and I know what it looks like. And I also know what wrong looks like. And that's people who don't understand the mission comes first, always. Anything else, you're wasting soldiers' time and lives.
We'll have time for one more question.
Afternoon, sir. My name is former Sergeant Aaron Grodzinski. I was an NCO with the Air Force Intel. As a former advisor for the Afghan Border Police, could you give a few examples of possible successes and challenges that you encountered when working with the Afghans?
Afghans are absolutely fascinating people. Every empire that likes to float into that country can't seem to leave. I really like Afghans. I really like Afghanistan. I really respect who they are, and I respect how they operate. They live in an austere environment. Everything's stacked against them. It's a dangerous neck of the woods. Empire after empire crushes them. And at the end of the day, they're kind, they're hospitable, and they'll be honest if you establish trust. The way forward for them is going to be difficult in our absence. We can help them as much as we want. But ultimately, they've been playing this game for a long time. I think the uniqueness of working with Afghans is if you truly get to understand them, if you truly get to breach that barrier, that cultural barrier, you'll find somebody who's just an amazing person, who will always be there for you. So, hope the best for him.
Before we conclude and dismiss, there are a number of thank yous that we would like to make, and also a small gift that we have for Will. We understand, Will, that you like to do things outside. Part of every leader needs something to de-stress, and so we have a small gift showing up, if you would like to bring that down.
Thank you very much. Is this for ski season?
It could be. So those are just a few Loyola things to help you in your outdoor activity. We also give thanks this day to those who helped bring Will here. The USO of Illinois, the Union League Club, the Pritzker Military Library sponsored this trip, so we're grateful to their support. And also those here at the university who were able to help to provide this venue for us this day to have this discussion. But most of all, really, Will, we're thankful for you, for your service, and your willingness to speak with all of us as a community here at Loyola. Thank you very much. I'd invite you to remain standing, and we're going to conclude with a blessing, and Father Patrick Dorsey from the Office of University Advancement is going to lead us. Immediately following the prayer, you are invited to a small reception in the foyer, and will be available to take pictures for those who would like. Thank you.
Let us pray. All-powerful God, you always show mercy toward those who love you, and you are never far away from those who seek you. We ask you to watch over and bless Captain William Swenson for the way he demonstrated your loving presence to those in need. Please, Lord, help him continue to achieve the Jesuit ideal of the Magus with the same intrepidity witnessed on the battlefield. Just as Captain Swenson's compassionate spirit was handed down to him from his parents, Carl and Julia, may he share that same compassionate spirit with his girlfriend, Kelsey. Please, Lord, shelter them with your protection day by day. Give them the light of your grace by night, and as their companion on the journey, help them bring to completion the good work you have started in them. Inspired by Captain Swenson's actions, we ask you to bless us all, Lord, with the grace to persevere in faith and hope, that we may continue to serve you and our country. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.